Good evening. Today we will continue to study about the third sort of an adverb that is the to-infinitive. The to-infinitive is a combination of a preposition to and a root infinitive that is the object of the preposition to. The preposition to is included in the fifth sort of an adverb that is a preposition. So the preposition to mediates the subject and object indicated by a root infinitive relationship, and the subject of the preposition to starts and gives the definition of the preposition to the object indicated by the root infinitive. To describe an experience, a condition, or an action. The point in time when the definition of the preposition to is actualized relies on the point in time when the definition of the verb in the clause that the preposition to is applied actualizes. So we can understand that the subject of the preposition to has a purpose to orient to the experience, condition, or action described by the root infinitive at a point in time later than the point in time when the subject of the preposition to exists, and a place. We can think of the reason why we study the to-infinitive as the third sort of an adverb, not as one of the sorts classified as a preposition in the fifth classification of an adverb. The combination of the preposition to and the object of the preposition to indicated by a root infinitive can have the trait that is one of a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. So the fact that the combination of the preposition to and the object of the preposition to can be an indication or a description depending on the application in a clause can be the reason why we study the to-infinitive in the third sort as the third sort of the adverb. The trait of the to-infinitive is determined after the to-infinitive is applied in a clause. Before then, we cannot figure out the trait of the to-infinitive. That's the reason why we call the to-infinitive as a to-infinitive. Because the trait of the phrase of the preposition to and the object of the preposition to is indefinite. This is obvious when we compare the determination of a trait that a word has is listed in a dictionary. When you open up a dictionary and find a word or research a word in a website, we can find the trait that the word has. For example, a word can be a noun or a verb. According to the trait, we can apply the word in a clause. Then we can find the role of a word according to the trait that is determined. According to the dictionary, we all agreed the trait of a word. For example, a word student is classified as a noun. We all agree about it. So before the speaker applies the word student, the speaker acknowledges that this word can be applied as an indication. So the word student can have a role as a subject or an object in a statement. So this procedure to apply a to-infinitive in a clause is distinctive from the way to apply the other words in a clause. To arrange a word in a clause, a speaker applies a word whose trait is predetermined and known among the speakers in the linguistic group. The dictionary has the information about the trait of a word, and the speaker applies the word with the designated, with the predetermined trait in a clause according to the trait of a word. The trait of a word is classified into an indication and a description, and a noun and a pronoun are included in an indication. The indicative word can have a role as a subject, an object, or a complement. The verb, the determiner, the adjective, and the adverb are included in the description. The descriptive word can be applied with a role as a verb, a complement, or a modifier. For the other example, we can apply a word whose trait is an adjective. Then the speaker can apply the word with the trait of an adjective as a descriptive word for a subject or an object in a clause with the role of a subjective complement or an objective complement. The adjective can be included in a phrase of an indicative word that has the role as a subject or an object in a clause collectively. The speaker can apply a word whose trait is an adverb. Then the speaker can apply the word whose trait is predetermined as an adverb in a clause with the role as a modifier. The speaker can include the adverb in the phrase of a verb phrase that consists of a verb and the adverb to specify the Definition of the verb. This procedure to apply a word whose trait is predetermined and the speaker applies the word according to the trait is not applied for the to-infinitive. The listeners who interpret a clause find a to-infinitive. Thus, the listeners who only read the to-infinitive in a clause do not know the trait of the to-infinitive. The listeners who read the entire clause can figure out the trait that the to-infinitive has in the clause among the traits of a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. So we can understand that the reason why we call a to-infinitive is the term to-infinitive. Let's start to study from the role of a to-infinitive. The speaker applies the preposition to mediate the subject-object relationship between the subject and the object, that is a purpose, a reason, a result of the subject, or an experience, a condition, or an action whose cause is indefinite, so considered as a succession in a sequence of time later than the existence of the subject. The to-infinitive, from the definition of the preposition to, reveals a purpose, a reason, a result, or a succession, because these one of the four roles can be discussed after the subject exists and the subject actualizes an experience, a condition, or an action. The speaker can deal with the purpose, the reason, the result, or the succession of the existence of the subject at first and the experience, condition, or action according to the definition of the verb in order. Like a premise to deal with the purpose, reason, result, or succession.